Death was not the end in ancient Egypt. It was the beginning of the most dangerous journey a person could ever face. After dying, the soul had to pass through a mysterious realm, confront powerful gods, know secret names, and ultimately stand before the judgment of Osiris. Then came the moment that could decide everything. The dead person's heart was placed on one side of a scale, while the feather of Ma'at, the symbol of truth and cosmic order, was placed on the other. If the heart was too heavy, eternal existence could be lost. But the Egyptians believed there was a way to prepare for this journey. They created extraordinary papyrus scrolls filled with spells, images, and instructions designed to guide the dead through the afterlife. Today, we call these ancient manuscripts the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The scroll beside Ani was not a single book written by one author. Ancient Egyptians created different collections of spells for different people, and no two manuscripts were exactly alike. Some were short and carefully selected. Others stretched for many meters, filled with hundreds of lines and vivid painted scenes. Their purpose was practical, to help the dead survive what came next. The spells could provide protection, reveal secret names, open dangerous gates, and tell the deceased what to say when facing supernatural beings. To the Egyptians, knowing the right words was not simply knowledge. In the afterlife, words could be a matter of survival. To understand why these spells mattered, we have to enter the world the Egyptians imagined beyond the tomb. The dead did not simply disappear into darkness. They faced a complex landscape filled with rivers, gates, guardians, dangerous regions, and divine powers. Every stage demanded preparation. A soul might encounter a gatekeeper who demanded a name, a creature that blocked the path, or a passage that could only be crossed with the correct words. The Book of the Dead was designed to give the deceased the knowledge needed to move forward. It was less like a story to read and more like a survival guide for eternity. But the most remarkable part of the Book of the Dead was not its length. It was how precisely it addressed the fears of the dead. Egyptian scribes recorded spells for protecting the body, preserving memory, avoiding dangerous beings, and navigating the realm beyond the grave. Some texts even instructed the deceased how to transform into different sacred forms. The goal was not simply to reach paradise. It was to preserve identity, remain powerful, and continue existing in the presence of the gods. For Ani, these words were not abstract religious ideas. They were a carefully prepared guide for his own journey after death. Then came the journey through the gates of the afterlife. Egyptian texts describe a world divided into regions, each with its own entrances, guardians, and dangers. The deceased had to know how to approach each gate, and, more importantly, what to say. Some passages were associated with fire, darkness, or threatening creatures. But the Egyptians did not imagine the dead wandering blindly. They believed the correct knowledge could provide protection. A spell could identify a guardian, open a passage, or prevent a supernatural threat from stopping the journey. The papyrus was therefore more than a religious text. It was a map, a collection of passwords, and a survival manual for the world beyond death. But the greatest test was still ahead. In the Egyptian afterlife, the dead eventually faced the judgment of Osiris, ruler of the realm beyond the grave. This was not simply a trial of good deeds in the modern sense. The deceased had to demonstrate that they had lived according to Ma'at, the principle of truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. In the famous judgment scene, Anubis stood beside the scales while Thoth recorded the result. The heart of the deceased was placed on one side. Opposite, it was the feather of Ma'at. Everything depended on the balance. And for the Egyptians, the heart was far more than an organ. It was believed to contain a person's identity, memory, character, and moral nature. If the heart was judged worthy, the journey could continue. The deceased could enter a paradise known as the Field of Reeds, or Aru. But this was not an empty heaven floating somewhere beyond the stars. Egyptians imagined it as an ideal version of the world they already knew. There were fertile fields, abundant crops, waterways, and peaceful work under the eternal presence of the gods. The dead could farm, sail, eat, meet their loved ones, and live forever. This is why the Book of the Dead was ultimately not about death. It was about preserving everything that made life worth living and carrying it into eternity. But there was another reason these manuscripts were so extraordinary. They were personalized. The spells and images could be selected according to the person's status, beliefs, and resources. Wealthier Egyptians could commission beautifully illustrated papyri from skilled workshops, while others received simpler versions. Ani's famous papyrus is especially valuable because it preserves an unusually detailed glimpse into this world. Its scenes show gods, rituals, judgment, and the journey of the deceased with remarkable precision. It is not merely a collection of religious spells. It is a visual record of what one Egyptian believed awaited him after death. And then comes the scene that made the Book of the Dead famous around the world, the weighing of the heart. In Ani's papyrus, Anubis carefully watches the scales while Thoth stands ready to record the verdict. Nearby waits Ammit, the terrifying creature known as the devourer of the dead. But the scene was not simply about punishment. It represented the Egyptian belief that a person's inner life mattered after death. The heart carried the record of who that person had been. If it balanced with Ma'at, the deceased could move forward. If it failed, the consequences were final. The entire journey had led to this one moment. The Book of the Dead also reveals something surprisingly human about ancient Egypt. These people did not want to become ghosts or disappear into an unknown void. They wanted to remain themselves. They wanted their names remembered, their bodies preserved, their families close, and their existence protected forever. The spells were designed to keep the deceased recognizable to the gods and capable of experiencing the afterlife. In that sense, the Book of the Dead was not really a book about dying. It was an attempt to defeat oblivion itself. And that may be the most powerful idea hidden inside these ancient scrolls. More than 3,000 years later, Ani's papyrus still survives, allowing us to see an ancient Egyptian vision of death with astonishing detail. But perhaps its greatest message is not about gods, monsters, or magical spells. It is about the fear that every human being understands, the fear of being forgotten. The Egyptians answered that fear with words, images, rituals, and names designed to survive beyond a single lifetime. Ani's journey was supposed to continue after death. Instead, something unexpected happened. His body disappeared into history, but his name, his beliefs, and his story survived on a fragile sheet of papyrus, and that may be the closest thing to immortality he could have imagined.